Neighbors, friends, happy new moon. It is September the 14th, and it's just a little past exactitude here. I think it's about 8 o'clock, maybe a little earlier than that. And when we work with the new moon, we always want to make sure that we work in the period after the sun and the moon conjoin. This time they're conjoining in Sidereal Leo at the very end of Leo. We just had an earlier lunation in Leo as well. And the tropical sign of Virgo. I don't have my microphone today, so the sound might be a little different, but I'm in a quiet place, so I'm hoping it all works out. Also hoping that Saturn retrograde in Pisces is all working out for everybody. It's a great time right now to tie up loose ends, bring things to completion points, and generally free up space and energy for new things to come. The nodes will be changing sign. They've already changed sign in the tropical, and they will be changing sign in the Vedic on October 30th. And this, the Vedic, will end an 18-year cycle. So again, culmination, wrapping up, bringing to an apex. And speaking of an apex, Lilith is at the apex of a yod in this chart. That's the finger of God. So pointing toward heavy hitters, Pluto and Neptune. Lilith is like our unprocessed shadow material. And with the nodes changing sign, they're also square to Pluto. So, there's an opportunity here to stand in power as the unconscious becomes conscious. This process, if you look back to 2019 and see it as a process of exfoliation, as a process of us making what was unconscious, making what we took for granted, making the unseen come to consciousness, come to light, bear the weight of revelation. It makes a little bit more sense. The shadow material has to be raised up, and especially in our country, especially in the United States, where we're having a Pluto return in our larger chart, everything that's difficult, dark, and ugly is coming to the surface. And that's what love does. That's what love is. Love is beauty, and it brings everything unlike itself to the surface to be blessed, to be purified, to be seen in beauty. Nothing is too dark, too ugly for us to love if we're oriented and aligned properly. And that's what a Virgo new moon does. That's what this area of Leo does, is it brings affection and brings love into the difficult, dark, dirty, dank places. And sometimes that means you scrub them up, and sometimes that means you just love them the way they are. Either way, you have to find the capacity, the depth of character within you to stand more. And that's what I'm trying to do with all this stuff, the writing, the cards, the meditations, is find a way to deepen my capacity, deepen my relationship to the present moment. And I'm just kind of inviting you along on my journey. I'm learning this stuff too. I'm not anybody's idea of, the last word or the expert on anything. And I'm not trying to put myself out that way, but I am very interested in sharing with you what I've learned. Finally, one of my favorite parts about all this, I have a South Node chart. I just am a K2 person. And Ketu will be conjunct Mars at 1 degree of Leo in the sidereal chart on October the 5th. And this is the way, this moon is a way of cutting away those things that veil the beauty of shadow. We're all in the north right now enjoying a beautiful moment in the shade. The collapse, both internal and external, of society and economy already happened in the global south a long time ago. The reality is going to reach us. And if we don't have the capacity to be able to stand more, the temptation to become violent and turn against each other is all too available, right, in this country. But forgiveness, love, understanding, coming together in a spirit of raising things up, making life better for everyone. If we could do that, if we could pull our chestnuts out of the fire this time, like so many of our ancestors have done before us, it is going to be pretty miraculous. And I believe in us, and I believe we can do it. On the new moon, we do the Druidic pathway spread. It's the overall pathway and an effort to, as all new moons are, overcome the inertia of the past, discover the limits and the purpose of the cycle, and carry ourselves through the next 30 days with a message that hopes, that inspires, without careening off into the abyss. I wrote a lot about that on the Dog Moon Yoga blog. It's on Patreon. I made it free on WordPress this time too, just because I think it's a great new moon. I think Uttara Falguni and the message of affection is absolutely gorgeous, and I want to share that with everybody. We need a little hope, a little levity. The first card in the Druidic spread is a card about the past, and it is stamina, elk. I love that it's a 3, the Tridevi, Triguna, Trinity, right? And also the trine that's in this chart of the new moon that extends from Pluto to Uranus to the sun and the moon. It's a rocking and rolling that we have been through for quite some time. And I kind of feel like this card is a little bit of a congratulations in the sense of that capacity that we're trying to build, being able to stand more, be more capacious and still functional. We have come through a mighty chrysalis stage, I think. And elk is the card of that we could outlast and endure the changes and come into something greater and better, seems to be signified by this first card, the card of the past. The card of the present, what we're going through right now, oh, patience, with 6 planets retrograde, it's a very appropriate card for the moment. And I also wanted to remind myself to say, you know, when we do this kind of new moon observation, this celebration of the dark of the moon, we don't want to make moves. We don't want to take big, decisive action until we can see that kind of sliver crescent of the moon emerging. Now, in this case, we also have Mercury retrograde station, and tomorrow it will go direct, but its shadow will be with us until, I believe it's the end of September, the 1st of October. So auspicious, inauspicious to make moves, permanent commitments during Mercury retrograde. That's individual for everybody. Those are choices you have to make for yourself. You know, if you've got to do it, do it. My feeling is, though, at least this weekend, lay back, be as patient as you can with the new things that you're trying to build. You don't have all the information yet. That's what Mercury retrograding means to me, is like the information that you're going to need is not yet available. And so it's good to postpone as much as you possibly can. Major decision, big, decisive. I'm killing myself with my own incense here because it's a little closer than my usual setup. Big, decisive situations should be able to stand the test of time. You know, if it's true, you can kick the tires. You can take a beat before you absolutely commit. Be sure of yourself. Be patient with yourself, and certainly with this process. All those retrograde planets, they definitely calcify this situation, and you know, it may be difficult to be patient at this point, but I think it's necessary, and I think it develops capacity. Oh, we're not even able to see you. Come on over here, babe. Okay. Second card is the present card. So in the past we have endurance. In the present, patience. Interesting. The third card is the future. And this card is grace. This is my Saraswati card. A goddess of wisdom, knowledge, arts, beauty, intelligence, and everything that we can learn here in our earth walk, right? This theme of patience, all the threes, right? That this is a cycle, that this is a middle of a larger lunar arc. And we have to keep in mind also the coming eclipses in October. So big change will occur between this new moon, next new moon, and then the 6-month cycle after that. So this card of grace, it says to me, look, this isn't a meritocracy. You're enduring, you're patient, and you can't push the river. Grace is given. It's not earned. It's bestowed. And when we receive it, if we're patient and we mean to endure, we feel gratitude for the small things that we've taken for granted. This moment in the shade for the people of the North, before the internal and external collapse, is a moment of grace. It's a moment to be grateful. The things that we have are not distributed equally yet. And in order for everyone to live, they have to be distributed like the grace of a planet that's abundant. I mean, you put one seed into the ground and you get 100 back. That is the real economy of Earth. The ones that we've created, the ones that we've made, are not the same. And they need to be balanced, and they will be balanced. Nature has her way, and she will have her way. We are lucky, and we are grateful, and we are recipients of grace in this moment. I hope you feel that, because it's a good thing to feel. Lucky, lucky people. That is our future. More love, more grace, more affection between us. You know, we are buffered, and we are going to have to become sober. To me, sobriety means a healthy relationship with reality. And the reality of my life, especially my life, is that grace is present. It's given. It's not earned. It's not something I did. It's given to me so that I can endure, so that I can be patient, so that I can learn, and so that I can understand. Because Saraswati brings understanding, and this is her vehicle. All right. The lessons of the past. I am so grateful we're getting this spiral, because we have gotten this in nearly every reading for, I think, the last 3 or 4 months. Grouse is a bird that has a spiral built into its mating dance. So when the male goes looking for the female, he moves in a spiral, showing off his plumage, showing off his body to her, asking her for her acceptance. And the male and the female forces that create the spiral, like the yin and the yang, are like a drill bit that move us through time and space. The spirals within and without connect us to this law, this universal law of correspondence that we're all familiar with on the spiritual path. As above, so below, as within, so without. This describes our relationship to the stars and the planets. This describes our relationship to the world of time and space. When you come into the world of time and space, you fall into these spirals, these cycles. And this is our past lesson. This is my intuition about this time in our evolution. It's so hard because we're gaining a whole new perspective. What I've seen go on in my life and in my body is like constriction, 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 release. And then I get more, and I understand more, and I'm more compassionate with myself, and I'm more affectionate toward the world. As these spirals narrow and tighten, we come under the kind of pressure that requires endurance and patience, but mostly grace, to get the lesson into us that there is no male-female opposition. It's a spectrum, a continuum, a loop around a series of cycles. And for a lot of people right now, that is a very hard thing to take. But it's not just any one pair of opposites. It's all the pairs of opposites. So of course it takes a lot of times around the circle to be able to fully take in what is coming to us from nature, from the natural cycles, from the cycles of the moon, from the influence of the planets, from everything that moves, grows, and becomes through a spiral on this planet. Because that's the movement here. That's why it's confusing. But that's also how it all moves. The past lessons are the spirals. Oh my goodness, I skipped the fourth. So that's the lessons of the past, but the lessons that are moving through right now, oh, I get it. I'm glad I made that mistake. I'm really fond of mistakes these days. I'm sorry, I'm a little obsessive over it. I hope it's not too annoying that I mention um, being able to make a mistake gracefully and forgive yourself in the moment, because that's the hard part about what I'm doing right now, is the name of the game. So in order to learn, you have to risk error. And I just made one. I laid down the fifth card before the fourth card. The fifth card are the past lessons, and the fourth card in the Druidic Pathway spread are the lessons moving through right now. Dragonfly represents Maya. It represents illusion. It represents Neptune. And Neptune is in a kite formation in direct opposition to this new moon. So the sun and the moon on one side over there by Mercury, and the Neptunian oceanic illusory Maya influence. You know, Buddha was tempted. Buddha was patient. Buddha endured, knowing that grace was his and that he mastered those spirals, that he came through time and space, above and below, up and down, right and left, the compass wheel, with his faith intact, his wisdom intact, his understanding that it was a divine situation that he was in, and that the material appearance was only that. Dancing forms, colors, shapes were not the reality he was seeking. And so he stayed rooted to the ground until it was revealed to him, until he could see clearly. That's what we're moving through right now. We're seeing life through Pluto's influence without the illusion that covers the shadow. We're starting to realize that that shadow is an integral part of who we are and what we are. And we don't demand that we be wholly good, and we don't condemn ourselves as wholly evil. We realize the nuance. We have the ability, the capacity to live in a both and world. To have empathy and compassion not only for ourselves, but for the other. That is Buddha's way. That is why it was so important to overcome illusion. The lessons moving through right now are messages about illusion. Be very, very careful with any commitments that you consider making. I would say within the next 6 weeks at a minimum. Read the fine print. Kick the tires. If it's the truth, it can handle the scrutiny. If it's real, you don't have to worry about waiting. Learn the difference between the temporal and the enduring. The temporal and the internal. Very important card. The lessons moving through right now. Okay. Now I've got the right order. What's working for us is the 6th card in the Druidic spread. And that card is deception. It's still a kind of cattywampus world, right? Owl cannot be deceived. Owl kicks the tires, right? Owl knows. And it uses the instinct below the waist, the intuition above the waist, and all the sensory data as puzzle pieces. But it always consults the heart. When, like in this picture, they move toward prey or something that they're going to capture, it's heart first, wings back. Full commitment, because they can't be deceived. And how is it that they understand so thoroughly? Because they know their hearts. Wisdom is not abstraction or arithmetic. Wisdom is being able to have a higher view of the reality that you're embedded in. And my sense of deception working for us is because it's become so blatantly obvious. I mean, the things that are not true are absolutely absurd anymore. The things that are true aren't advertising. They're not beating you over the head with it, right? And I'm watching lots of talented artists and people, have to kind of shuck and jive for a buck, because that's the system that we're in. That's the cycle that we're living down right now. That's the completion that hasn't yet come to term. And it's less than graceful, that's for sure. It's not pretty to watch, artists and creators and people who really have something to give to humanity have to shuck and jive. Owl knows about this real economy, right? The real abundance of the earth. It knows that you're going to get 33% of the market no matter what. You may get more in the beginning and less in the end, or less in the beginning and more in the end. But over these great arcs of time, everything balances out. Everything comes to its own culmination. Lies tell themselves. And if you're patient enough and you endure, the grace of truth always comes. So, discernment, learning not to be deceived. And I don't like the Who, but that "Don't Get Fooled Again" song, right? How many times with politics? How many times with product? How many times with corporate situations? Are we going to get fooled into thinking that they're doing something good for us and good for the planet? We know better. Acting like it can be the hard part, though. All right. What's working against us? Secrets. We keep getting them. We keep getting these two cards. Okay. Lynx is Sphinx, right? That beautiful megalithic structure in the desert in Egypt. That, it is supposed by Robert Bouval and a couple of other people, pointed to the heliacal rising, the processional rising of the constellation Leo in the time that it was built. So it has some bearing. on leadership, on royalty. And I really get the sense that that's what this card means. Those are the things that are working against us. Right? Most good people don't want war. Most of the people I know would prefer that we didn't spend all of our money on weapons, but on improving the lives of our citizenry. It's our leaders who want that, and they want it for their own reasons. Mostly because it makes them rich. There's a secret behind all of that. There's a secret behind the way the leadership of our world is taking the money and running right now. And I can't help but think, with deception working for us and secrets working against us, we're about to wise up. It looks like the illusion is coming into a turning of the spiral, into a page that we leave behind us. When we see these together, the past is what we've endured. The present is us being patient. The future is the grace we move into. The lessons of the past are the spirals, the same spiral that exists everywhere in nature and in our bodies. The lessons moving through right now are messages about illusion. Not being able to be deceived, not getting fooled again is working for us. But there are still secrets working against us. It's all about fear, though. And I get that in this moment. There's a real uncertainty to what we're going through. And I think that's the conquest of dimensionality. I think when you move up a level, which is really what this and the astrology of the new moon seems to be saying to me personally, is your discernment, your ability to recognize deception is jumping up a level. You're moving through an illusion that you couldn't see before in earlier cycles. But there are still secrets ahead, right? And with grace, we'll move through those. But not until we get past the fear. The fear of loss, the fear of death. The fear that material life is all there is. I always keep hoping that there will be some evidence, some undeniable, irrefutable evidence that material life is not all there is. And maybe it's wishful thinking. Maybe it's that influence of Neptune that's making me say that. But I challenge you, I invite you to bring your own interpretation and your own imagination to the way that the ball could bounce differently than we think it's going to. We don't have any real evidence, especially if we look into our past. I mean, we're here, that we're going to drop the ball. I really don't think we are. And I think it's very fruitful to ask to be shown ways in which we could pull our chestnuts out of the fire. I'm always very grateful for your attention. I'm always very grateful for your support. And I'm just really glad you're here with me going through this. Thanks.